Hey guys, Brian here from Nine Toes Fishing. Today's video is the breakdown episode 2, where we break down the Columbia River Prefish out in Umatilla, Oregon. We're going to talk a little bit about what we used during the tournament. I'll show you some of the lures. We'll talk about the areas we targeted and just some of the things that I was thinking of as I was going through the Prefish. But before I get into the video, I'm going to start it with a little bit more of a somber note. You guys know I like to partner with some of the smaller companies, right? I do that because it's a bigger sense of family. Everyone there is truly there to help each other out. And this week we lost a member of the Jack Bates team family, in Chance Williamson. He passed away unexpectedly at 27 years old, and we decided we have to find a way to give back and try and help his family out. So if you guys want to take part, we're making some shirts that say Jack Bates on them, and underneath it says #for_chance. And then I've got a buddy of mine making some decals. So for 27 bucks, you get a shirt and a decal. We're taking pre-orders on them now. If you want to find out how or what you need to do, just shoot me a email over at ninetoesfishing@gmail.com, and I'll get you the PayPal information. All the proceeds go to his family to try and help him out during this really tough time. So on behalf of myself, the entire Jack Bates team, my family, to Chance's family, we're extremely sorry for your loss. So if you guys want to give back, please do. It's all going to a good cause, and you can help out a great guy. So we'll get into the video now. Hope you guys like it, and we will see you here in a minute. What's going on, guys? Get through the intro here and we'll get into the video. So I'm excited for this one. Just making sure the audio is turned down on the video itself. Here I'm just talking about first day of practice and blah blah blah. It was way early in the morning, so I was a little bit tired. So I had never been to Umatilla before until this practice, which was exactly a week before the tournament starts. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to think. And here in the video, I'm just kind of talking about what my thoughts were, what I was planning on doing, stuff like that. So just gives you some good scenery of the river. So we launched right down by the dam, and on the Oregon side, and then you can see that far bank across the other side is the Washington side. So I take off here in a minute, and so I decided to start off on a big flat out in the middle by one of the buoys, and I started off throwing a swim bait. Pretty much what I threw primarily was this little swim bait made by the Crazy Hick Bait Company, and I kind of alternated off between that and a Lockett Lures swim bait. I threw them all in a 1/4 ounce head, white and silver, just depended on what I felt like throwing at the time. And this particular swim bait happened to be what I caught probably 90% of my fish on. Just a little paddle tail, swim bait, 3.8 inch, and I think a 4.2 inch or something was the other one. But that's what I caught, the majority of my fish on. And right away here in the morning, there was a lot of little ones feeding up on this flat, and it pretty much was a flat that ran, I don't know, maybe 3 to 4 feet deep, across a pretty wide area, and then quickly fell off into like 40 feet of water. So basically what I was doing was targeting the edges of that flat, and then kind of fan casting the middle of it. And what I noticed was fan casting the middle on just a steady retrieve, I caught quite a few, just a lot of smaller ones. And trying to do that same thing on the edge of that drop wasn't really working. So a lot of times what I would do is just cast that swim bait out, let it sink down, and then kind of give it some slow rises. So like what I'm doing right now, just kind of letting it sit down, and kind of sink down to the bottom, and then kind of pulling it in. And that guy hit it as it was falling. And that happened quite a bit out on that flat, a lot more than it happened when I was fishing the second area that I went to. But I was just trying to find some spots that I knew would hold fish, and then just try and get a gauge for the size. Out here, until the end of the video, pretty much they were all that same cookie cutter size, about a pound. So now I moved into the Washington side of the river, and basically what this was I was probably fishing 30 feet offshore, and it was real shallow. It'd go from, like, shoreline 2 feet deep out to where I was sitting in about 5 to 8 feet of water, and then 5 feet on the other side of the boat was 10 to 15 feet of water. And the bigger ones seemed to be holding right on the edge of that 5 to 8 foot range. This guy here was 3.5 pounds, I think, and one of the first good ones I got of the day. I caught him on the swim bait. Just a slow presentation. They were really feeding heavy that morning, and I didn't see a lot of fish busting on top of the water as I did later on in the day. And when they did start busting on top, I switched tactics, and I'll show you what that was when we get to that part of the video. So I'm just giving him a quick weight here. I think he was somewhere around 3.5 pounds, something like that. So I had already caught, in just that short time that morning, I think I was sitting at 6 or 7 pounds with those 4 littler ones, and then this guy. You can see he's a pretty good guy. A little bit skinny, flipping sideways there, he's a little bit skinny. So they're just starting to get fattened up. Hey, by the way, guys, this video is brought to you by Pyramid Outburst Imperial IPA. I'm just kidding, it's not brought to you by anybody, I just like it. Nobody sponsors my videos. I just like IPAs. So again, here I'm still just throwing that same swim bait. And I got into a patch here where I caught a bunch in a row, but again, they were all, in that pound and a half. I'd get the occasional 2-pounder. This one actually might be pretty good, I can't remember. Yeah, this is another good one. I think this was like 2.5 pounder, I think, if I remember right. Just get them up here and I'll see. Yeah, I think this one was like 258. Ballparkish anyways. You'll have to go back and watch the regular video if you want the exact weights, but I think that's about what he was, 2.5. For the gear that I'm using, on this particular one, I'm using a Team Quantum KVD reel on an FX custom rod 7-1 cranking rod. It's a Gen 1 rod, they don't make it anymore, but that rod is fantastic. That one now is at the bottom of a pond because I went to stick it in the rod holder on my kayak, missed the rod holder, and down it went. Couldn't get it back, and it's sitting somewhere in that pond in about 25-30 feet of water. So my plan this spring is to go back there and see if I can get it back, see what kind of shape it's in. But pretty disheartening to lose that rod. That was probably my favorite rod of all of the models that they make. It's just a very versatile rod. You can use it for spinner baits, swim baits, crank baits, just about anything. It's an awesome rod. I've recently switched reel companies though. I came on board of Team Ardent this year, so I'll be using all Ardent reels for this tournament season, and I'm really looking forward to that. We went out and put them to the test this a couple weekends ago, and they held up really well. They're smooth, they cast well. I'm impressed so far. So I hope they hold up throughout the year, and we shall see. So there's another one about a pound. I think right now Big 5 are weighing, let's see, we're at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we're about 9 pounds right now. Going into this tournament, I really felt like if I could get somewhere in that 17 to 18 pound range, I'd have a pretty good shot of at least a top 10, maybe top 5 maybe even winning it just based on previous years. I didn't know how close I was until the day of the tournament. We'll share that a little bit later on. But again, we're just targeting it's just a weed line that runs all the way along that section where you can see there on the shore. And I get into a pocket of fish here, and they just keep coming. And they're all the same size. Nothing you can win with, but at least showed me that I was doing the right thing. Excuse me, the fish are there, they're feeding hard. And so I knew that if I kept plugging away at what I was doing, I'd have a pretty good day. And this one was like a 113 or something, whatever it was. And as we go through the day, it starts getting a little bit warmer. The fish kind of moved out a little bit farther, which was kind of crazy to me. I figured they'd kind of suck up into those weeds, but they kind of moved out a little bit farther. So here we got another real good one. This one I think was 2.5 again, maybe 3. I can't remember on this guy. We'll see when we pull him up. Another real good smallmouth, and they were just hanging like right on the edge of that weed line, as well as, you know, between that 4 and 5 feet out from the weed line range, and they were kind of sitting in that 2 feet of water area, part of the water column. They weren't quite at the surface yet, but you could tell that they were starting to move up into that weed line as the day progressed. Yeah, I think that one was about 3 pounds, 3.12 I think is what he was. So another good smallmouth, and that put us at, with just our 3 biggest, put us at 9.5 pounds. Then I had a couple of 1-pounders, so about 11.5 pounds. And you kind of see what I'm looking at there, just a bunch of weeds. They're all kind of right underneath the water to just ticking the very top of the water. And again, if you want to know the exact weight, you can go back to the original Umatilla Prefish video, and you can see I talk about all the weights and stuff as I'm weighing them out. This is a lot of fun, though. It was a little bit of a cool morning, but the day as it went on, it started warming up, and it was just beautiful out there. We did not get the same type of weather during our actual tournament. During the actual tournament, it was, wind was blowing 20 to 25, constant 40-mile-an-hour gusts. We had some waves that were 5 feet tall, and it made it really hard to hold some of these spots. And you know, in retrospect, I've told a lot of people this before, but I think this is a tournament that I regret the most, because I knew where the fish were. I knew they were still there. I just didn't hold those spots like I should have, and I don't know if it's because of fear of you know, taking on too big of a wave, or what, but I just regret not sitting there, spot locking those spots, and really fishing them hard, knowing that the fish were in those areas. So, you know, it's frustrating, and a lot of regret for this one, because you know, this is the one tournament I can say this year that I should have won. Without, beyond a shadow of a doubt, I should have won this tournament. That takes nothing away from the guys that won it, but I should have won this tournament. This was mine. I was on the right fish. I was on the right schools. I had the weight to do it, and I should have won. So there, I just had to plug the camera in for the GoPro because the battery died. And the GoPro, the nice thing about that one is you can plug it in and record while while it's charging. So here we get another real good one. This one was a little over 3 pounds again, or this was 258. I think this is the one that was 258. The last one was like 312, and I think this one was 258 or vice versa. I can't remember, but it was another really good fish. So I'm marking this spot on my fish finders. I don't have them networked, so I have to actually mark them on both just so I can make sure I have my spots. Yeah, I think this one was 312. I don't know. Yeah, this was 312. Another really good Umatilla smallmouth. You know, you get 5 of those, and you've got a really good chance at having a good finish in a tournament here, especially this time of year. so I get a quick weight. What I do during a pre-fish, so for Northwest bass, we're allowed to pre-fish the Sunday before. The lake is off limits from Monday to Thursday, and then you can pre-fish again the Friday before you launch. And so I'm not too afraid of hooking them on that Sunday because they'll recover fine. On the Friday before, I generally cover up the hooks with straws or shrink tubing or whatever, just so they don't get hooked, and then just shake them off, just so you don't waste any really good fish as the tournament goes on, or as the tournament's getting ready to start. So this stretch of bank is probably, I don't know, it's probably 2 miles long. So I had a lot of area that I was able to cover, and they just seemed to fire on that whole bank. There was just something about the weed line, how it was setting up, the weather, that they were all just packed in there. During the tournament, it was the same. Like a lot of the spots that I did sit there and hold on to, it took a little bit more coaxing, but I still caught the fish out of there. And I should have just held tight to those areas. And again, it's just a regret. There are so many good areas on that Umatilla side of the river. Well, really the Columbia River as a whole. There's so many good areas that once you get into them, you can catch 4, 5, 6 good fish out of a single spot. And that was often the case during this tournament or during this pre-fish. I had several areas of this river that I probably caught, I don't know, 6 or 8 fish from at once. Just one right after another, after another, after another. And it was a blast. And a lot of them were this size. But then occasionally you'd get the one you need in a 2 or 3 or 4 pounder. And those are the ones that can make a difference. And you know, for me this year here, I'm talking a little bit about what I was using. So that is just I think it's this color that I had on there that I'm showing you. Kind of a pro blue type of color. That seemed to be the color that worked the best. And then a 1/4 ounce swim bait. I throw it on 10-pound Iser line. It's a copolymer. I went through a ton of line last year, and I didn't have, be honest, like I threw P line for years, and gosh, the first half of last year, I broke off more fish because of that stupid line. I shouldn't say stupid, they make good stuff, but I don't know if I got a bad run of line or what happened, but I broke off a ton with that line. And so a buddy of mine turned me onto this Iser line, and I think it got its start like saltwater fishing or whatever it was. That stuff is so durable, super strong. I will not use anything else unless I absolutely have to. This stuff is money. It's not expensive. It's like $7.99 for a 300-yard spool at 12-pound test. Super durable, abrasion resistant. I just love it, so I'm going to keep using it. You can have a debate about fishing line all day long about what to use during what type of clarity in the water and the weather and everything else. I've never put much stock into that. It's just not something I think about when I'm on the water. I don't think the line affects fish as much as some people claim it does. I'm not saying it doesn't have an effect. I think it's a little bit taken too seriously from a line perspective. I've never had issues catching fish regardless of the type of line that I'm throwing. So I don't buy into the hype, I guess you can say. So now I'm a little bit farther down the river here, still throwing that same swim bait. You know, they say if it's not broke, don't fix it. Now here's where I changed up. So what I noticed was, or what I saw was, I heard some crashing around to my right, and there were smallmouth busting everywhere. And I wasn't really sure what I was going to do or what I was going to throw, so I decided I'm going to go back to the swim bait here for a minute and see if I can't, I'm spot locking the trolling motor right now, see if I can't get a few on the swim bait, since they were busting on, I don't know if they were eating shad or what they were eating, but they were blowing up the water. think I get one here. Either that or the next cast. Yeah, the next cast I get one. Again, not big, but there was a big one, probably 3+ pounds, that I saw come out of the water over there. So I'm trying to burn the swim bait a little bit, just to get him amped up, and everyone smacked it, and he was, I don't know, about a pound again. So this is the first one, a little better than a pound, I guess. But I think I caught 8 fish out of this one little section. So I take the camera and I move it to the just turn it to where it was pointing at the front, and I kind of start talking a little bit about what I'm doing. At this point, I was getting hit like every 5 seconds, and they just kept getting off. But what I was throwing was this extra wide gap hook and the fluke. When they're busting shad on top, this thing is absolute money. And there's a couple of different ways you can rig this up. I'm just going to show you the way I do it, because I think it helps guarantee a little bit better connection. So I'll show you the way that a lot of people will do it, and they will basically feed it through there, kind of figure out where the hook needs to go through, put it through, and then let it sit underneath that little flap. So you got that little flap that they got to push away. What I notice a lot of times on these flukes is sometimes they can be a little bit stiff, and it's a little bit harder for them to push that out of the way and get that hook buried in them. So I rig it a little bit differently. So I will rig it reverse. And I'll go through there. I'll pop that down and through. I like to bury the eye down in the fluke a little bit. And then I'll do the same thing where I'll measure it, and then I'll poke it through the back side. And I'll fish it like that. And the reason I do that is generally when they come up and grab it, this pulls out of the way much easier when they hit it, and it's much easier to get a solid hook set. Just my experience. You can take that as you want, but that's how I do it. And if you're worried about that getting caught up in weeds or whatever when you're skimming it across the top, just peel it back just a little bit and just barely bury the tip of that hook in the plastic, and that will keep it from snagging up, and it's still easy for them to push down. But I find my hook sets are a lot better that way. So I fished this fluke for quite a while, and I just would do different stuff, twitching it across the top, letting it sink down. Finally hooked up with one there. Let it sink down a little bit. And again, this was a pretty good one. I think it was 168, 158, something like that. When he grabbed it, he took it down on the weeds a little bit and had to kind of horse him out. On this one, I'm throwing a Daiwa reel. I think it's a TD 100 or something like that. And I'm throwing it on an FX custom rod, 7'4" shaky head rod, medium action, light or moderate fast tip, I think is what it is. That rod is money too for a spinning rod. That thing is phenomenal. Tons of backbone, yeah, tons of backbone, great vibration, or great sensitivity. Just does a fantastic job. And I'll still run those rods this year. They've been a great partner for me, and the rods they make, they've got the Gen 2s out now, and they're ridiculous as well. So I get a quick weight on him and send him back, and then I'm going to change the camera. I'm going to put the camera on the back of the boat now, so you can kind of see what I'm throwing into. So you can see over to the right and to the left, kind of where the water skims out, is where that weed line is, and right in the middle of that is just a clear open spot, like really sandy. You can see the bottom, and they were all just kind of swimming back and forth, just chasing the shad. This guy does some aerobatics on the water, just kind of swims like that. But he was a feisty little bugger. Not a great one, a little over a pound, but still a fun fish to catch, and they were just killing it on that fluke. So like I said, I was just kind of alternating off between really fast, really twitchy motions, really getting that thing to kind of just dart around in the water, get him to chase it. Some of the stuff I'd go slow. Here we got another one on. Or we lost him. Oh no, we got him again. He hit it and then missed it and then came back and hit it again. So we got another decent one. He's not huge, but pretty good fish. And this is pretty much what it looked like all the way down the bank. Just weeds and weed edges and weed lines, and kind of a mix between sand and rock, and it was just it was so much fun. I lost count of how many fish I caught during practice, but it was a ton. What I should have done was thrown the double fluke here, where you rig up two of those flukes, one right above it, the other one. Try and get a couple on at a time. That would have been a blast. Because oftentimes, and I think during one of these catches, I talk about how there's a bunch chasing him. Because oftentimes they'll come up and grab that and catch two fish at once, which is pretty cool. Now, some of the stuff that I thought about when I came out here, you know, you put a lot of thought into what the weather's going to be like, right? You think about structure, current, all of that kind of stuff, to where fish are going to, excuse me, where fish are going to set up, where they're most likely going to be, what kind of feeding patterns are going to be on during a certain time of year, for me knowing nothing about the river. I had only fished the Columbia just a handful of times, and not this part of the river at all. This is a pretty good one. He was a couple pounds. I think after I weighed this one, I'm at like 13 pounds for the day, of my biggest 5. But you know, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. People always ask me, like, how much of fishing is luck? How much of it is skill? And my answer, you know, the best I can figure, I think it's 80% skill and 20% luck. You know, the fish have to be there, and there's going to be some luck involved in that. But being able to take out the equation of why they're there, where they're going to be, time of year, reading your electronics, doing all of those things, that's where the skill really comes into play. And then understanding what they're feeding on, what to throw to mimic it. There's a lot of thought that goes into a tournament day. That's a pretty good one. A lot of thought that goes into a tournament day and tournament prep that most people don't think about. You're just not out there just finding a bank and casting. There's a reason why you make every single cast you make. And it's because you believe that wherever you are holds the right ingredients to have a successful tournament. So the reason why I turned around here is a bunch of them started busting behind me. So I cast it in there and caught them. And I think I caught 3 out of that spot where they were busting. And these ones were a little bit deeper, so I went out to, they were busting in like 12 feet of water. So I cast right on them, and they were just kept hammering it. I think this is the 6th or 7th fish I caught out of this one spot, because just to the right was where they were busting when I was throwing the fluke. Nothing huge, but you never know when it's going to happen, right? So I make another cast into that same spot, and like hit me almost immediately again. This day was just, the day was just so much fun. I've had a lot of pre-fishes that I've had a lot of fun in, where you catch, 10, 12 fish, and you're feeling pretty good about yourself. But then you have days like this where you're catching fish like hand over fist. Every other cast, it seems like at times. Sometimes every cast. And it was a blast to be out there and catch so many smallmouth. I was by myself pretty much all day long, and so I knew that come tournament time that I was going to have a pretty good shot, regardless of my boat draw. There's another one in that same spot. Regardless of my boat draw, I was going to be able to get the spot that I wanted. So I wasn't worried about getting the spot. I was already convinced at this point in time that I was going to focus all of my time and energy on this one stretch of bank, knowing I could catch them. So, and again, still throwing the swim bait. Just if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So far I've thrown for the day. All I've thrown was the swim bait. Swim bait and the fluke, and that is all I've thrown so far this day. I change it up a little bit later on to the secret weapon. We'll talk about that later on. So we're getting closer and closer down to the end down there. There's a big cove that kind of circles in there, and I didn't spend a whole lot of time there. I wanted to go check out a few other parts of the river. Get another one. And I know we caught a lot of little guys, a lot of fish that were in like that pound to pound and a half range, and a handful of them that were under a pound. But like I said, that's sometimes what you got to do. You got to get through some of these little guys, because eventually you're going to catch some of those big ones. And I showed that throughout the video that, every once in a while you'll catch that 3-pounder, and that's the one you need for tournaments like this. I think I catch another one here right away, back to back. Yep. And I love fishing smallmouth, but, or I love fishing largemouth, but smallmouth are so angry all the time that you can catch a 1-pounder and he'll feel like a 4-pounder. They're just angry, aggressive fish, and pound for pound, they're amazing fish to fight. So at this point, I'm not even weighing those little ones because I know I've got 12 or 13 pounds. And I know those little 1-pounders aren't going to help me. I need another 3-pounder really to get me over that 15 mark. Another one, so that's the third one I've got out of that one spot. And again, not big, but still a blast. So now I'm fishing farther downriver. So I made a long run. It doesn't look very close, but that's a big island that comes out. And the whole area is just kind of a big old flat. So I'm just letting it sink down and then kind of slowly reeling it along. And I get another one. And it wasn't big by any means, but it just showed me that there was fish there, and that's pretty much what I needed to know. And during the tournament, it was so windy, I didn't have the guts to go down there, because I knew once you rounded that corner that it was going to be nasty. And here we're a little bit closer to that island out in the middle. And again, I didn't spend a lot of time in this section of the water, but I did want to find a couple of spots just as backups, just in case I lost my other spot. Or somebody was going through it, or whatever the case was. I'm gonna catch another little one. Started to warm up, so I threw my head buff on so I didn't burn and get cancer. Again, not a huge one, but decent. So at this point I had caught, I think I had caught another one that called out, one of the smaller 1.5 pound ones. And so I'm sitting at like, I guess like 14 pounds. This is a big old sturgeon. That thing was like 7 feet long. It was so big. It sucks when you see him dead though. But yeah, he was like 7 feet long, probably 200 pounds. I don't know. It was just ginormous. So I had caught another one at some point that I called out, another one of the little 1.5 pounders. So now I'm sitting at like, I think like 14 pounds, I think. And that was with like 3 3-pounders, a 2-pounder, and a 1-pounder or something. I was right close to 15, however I was. And I started making my way back in. This is towards the latter parts of the evening. And I catch another tank. That puts me over the 15-pound mark for my best 5. I think this was the one. Yeah, I think this was another, right at 3 pounds, like 289 or 302 or something goofy like that. I don't know. I'm terrible at remembering. But another good fish anyways, and this pushed me over that 15-pound mark. I think my best 5 that day weighed 1565, 1578, something like that. Yeah, it's a hell of a day. So tournament day comes, this nasty wind. Some guys made long runs up the Snake River. Some guys went all the way down to Crow's Butte. Or I flipped them into the boat. Yeah, I think it was like 258. And the winning weight that day was like right at 16 pounds or just under. So I was on it. I knew what I was going to do. I knew what I was supposed to do, and I just couldn't prove it during the tournament. So lots of regret. But I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the breakdown. If you have any comments or suggestions, please drop them down in the comment bar. If you look up here, you can click that and hit subscribe. Over here, we'll have some videos for you that are linked in there. Don't forget about the fundraiser for Mr. Williamson's family. If you guys could participate, it would be greatly appreciated. I really would appreciate it. So where we are right now, we're still in kind of that same spot. We catch another decent one. Not huge, but decent. I'm not even sure I weigh this guy. I might. No, I don't. I throw him back after I fling him into the boat. But he's still, 1.5 pounds, maybe almost 2, but just not big enough to make a difference. So I think I kind of take a look at him and then throw him away. Or maybe I weigh him. No, I don't think I do. I think I just throw him away because I don't think he's big enough. So now I'm out on that flat again. And this is where the secret weapon comes out. So before this tournament, I made some bucktail jigs. Pretty much like this. The one I'm throwing is all white, but I've got a little bit of that sparkle in it, a little bit of green, a little bit of white. Some were ball head jigs, and some were the swim bait heads. And it turned out that I caught a few on that as well. One's already got it. As I'm pulling out my backlash, I just pull up on it, and he's already there. I didn't catch any big ones on it. But to be able to catch a few on something I made, it's a pretty cool feeling. I had heard that bucktail jigs were pretty good out there, and I just thought, yeah, why not give it a shot? I'll make a few. And all I'm doing here is just reeling it real fast, like a fleeing bait fish, letting it sink, reeling it, letting it sink. Giving it some jigs like that, letting it fling up and then fall. Just trying a bunch of different types of techniques, and the sharp jerks is what ended up triggering them the most. And again, nothing huge, but well, it puts a fish in the boat, and that was fun. And then this very last one, I'm throwing a spinnerbait, black and blue. hook a 3.5 or a 4-pounder, and he throws the spinnerbait. So I'll leave you with that, folks. Thanks for watching.